All right, hey everyone, my name is Kai, and we are here with our very first inaugural Crazy Talk Animator 3 from Script to Scene webinar. I have a little bit of a cold right now, so please excuse me in advance if I have a coughing fit or something like that. It's a typical February/March thing to have. Anyways, what we're going to be doing is, for the very first time, we're going to be having a 3-day webinar. The first day is the current day that we're talking about right now. We're going to be creating a scene from scratch, from the very beginning into the very end. The total runtime of this scene is about 2 minutes long. We're not going to be doing all the work throughout this class time here. I'm going to try to make this a bit more interactive as well. So what we're going to be doing in this first day is we're going to be talking about scene creation in general and prop creation, creating a title screen, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff that we'll get into in just a moment here. And then I'm going to be taking about 10-15 minutes at the end of this webinar, and I want to get any suggestions from you. So if you guys have any questions about anything that was covered, or any suggestions for something that we can create or add to the scene, I'm open to suggestions. This is just a basic script that I whipped up here, and if you have any good ideas or anything that you want to learn about at the end of this webinar, we'll take about 10-15 minutes for a Q&A session, and it looks like we've reached the maximum number of attendees for this particular session, so apologies to all of you who couldn't get in, but we do have day 2 and day 3 as well. Now, for this particular webinar, we're going to be, this is day 1 like I mentioned here. These are the learning points for day 1. We want to get right into it because we don't have a lot of time here, just an hour to get into a lot of stuff here. I'm going to be introducing the UI. Now, the UI in Crazy Talk is pretty basic, so not really a whole lot to talk about here. On top of that, we're going to be talking about how to create your scene. So just stuff about like 3D view, how to place things in your scene, pretty easy stuff. And we're also going to use some animated props. I'm going to create a title sequence, which I'll show you in just a moment here. Creating custom titles and props in Photoshop. And there's also elastic motion we're going to talk about. We have tutorials on these as well. If you have any questions, you can just email me. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's Kai @reallusion.com. We're going to talk about adding some music and special sound effects to our scene as well. So this is all going to be covered in the next hour here. Hopefully we have enough time to get to all that stuff. And in class 2, which is tomorrow, we're going to be learning about creating custom characters. We're not going to create, we're going to spend a lot of time creating one particular custom character. Custom head creation, we're not going to get into too much detail about that, although we can at the end. If we have a 10-minute Q&A session at the end, we'll talk a little bit more about the finer points of head creation. The head creation in part 2 is going to be pretty simple, though. We're going to talk about free-bone actor creation, also using actor templates to create those actors. And class 2, I would recommend that you have something like Photoshop or GIMP is a free version of Photoshop. If you are not aware, GIMP, G-I-M-P, pretty good Photoshop clone, I guess you can call it, and that'll be covered in class 2 here. And finally, class 3, we're going to talk about all the animation, facial animation, body animation. We're going to do a little bit of very little camera work. There's not too much camera work that's involved in this particular scenario in this scene. And then we're going to talk about how to render and assemble everything in Adobe Premiere, complete with some titles and some credits and all that fun stuff. So if you want to learn more about that, feel free to get in touch and email me, kai@reallusion.com, and sign up for day 2 and day 3 of this webinar. All right? And we're going to be talking about custom props and everything like that as well. Now, let's get right into it. Scene 1 here. First of all, I'm going to bring up the script really quick here. So I have an actual script that I'm going to actually provide to you guys, a script template. I found this just Googling. It's like a script template I found just by Googling. You can fill in your own information here. And this is generally what a script will look like. You don't have to have all this shortcut stuff here. You can actually probably just delete all that stuff. But generally a script is going to be like this type of format, like a screenplay. All right. And so let's take a quick look at the script. So basically in our scene we have 2 detectives. I've just created a scenario. It's kind of a lighthearted, kind of humorous scenario with 2 characters. One is Marv and one is Kip, and they're both private eyes. Marv is like a gruff kind of old alcoholic, angry detective, hard-drinking detective, and Kip's like a young, optimistic young buck detective that is his partner, his assistant, or whatever you want to call it. And I'll send out the script as well later to you guys. You can use the script as a template for your own productions as well, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. So basically, they're in the office. The first scene, they're in the office, just bantering back and forth, and they have a task, or I guess a case, where they want to infiltrate this convention, who are a convention of furries. Furries, in case you're not aware, maybe people who dress up in animal costumes. I got this idea from watching an episode of CSI, and they're going to infiltrate that and find a thief. Who knows what he stole? It doesn't really mention here. So they're bantering back and forth in the first scene. The second scene is kind of like a Benny Hill type situation where there's characters running back and forth, and they have that Benny Hill music, which I'll show to you in just a moment here. We'll talk a little bit about adding music to your scene as well, and I'll play the video for you guys as well before we get into anything else. So there's some just some running around, and a lot of animation in scene 3 is going to be done here, and this Benny Hill music theme scene 2 here, and then scene 3 finally we're going to have the finale where our thief is just saying, "Well, you'll never take me alive, coppers," jumps off the edge of the building and escapes, and Marv gives up, and that's the scene right there. That's the screenplay, rather. Okay, so let's go ahead and close the script down. I'll be sending that to you guys later. I'll just go ahead and save it like that. And yeah, let's take a look at the video. Now this playback may be a little bit, I think I have the video saved right here somewhere. Oh, maybe it's not saved in this particular, the actual finished video. I believe I saved it somewhere. Here we go. Private eye guys. Okay, so I'm going to play this back for you guys now. It may be a bit laggy on some of your computers, depending on the connection and everything like that. But I'll talk you through the actual scenes themselves a little bit later on as well. So let's go ahead and just play this back. So this is the Law and Order music. In case you're not aware, I just kind of grabbed it off YouTube. And this is the first scene that we're going to be having. This is our introductory scene, I guess you can call it. We'll be learning how to create this in this webinar.
What you doing there, kid? Writing a letter to your boyfriend?
Actually, sir, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to infiltrate this furry club. You seem like a close-knit bunch.
Simple, kid. We go in there and bust some heads. Good old-fashioned detective work.
Actually, sir, I was thinking more along the lines of costumes. Since it's a furry convention, we could sneak in unnoticed.
Mighty fine thinking there, kid. Guess that's why I pay you the big bucks.
Last month you paid me with a book of coupons from Walmart.
Literally hundreds in savings.
All right, so there's our characters, Marv and Kip, and then we have a scene that says they're chasing the criminal. All right, this is the final scene where this is basically the only camera movement in the scene.
We've got you cornered. There's nowhere to run.
You'll never take me alive, coppers. Oh. Oh. Well, there goes another one. Sometimes I think we're getting too old for this stuff, kid.
Okay, so apologies for the cheesiness, but just a little script that I came up with there. And that was all put together in Premiere at the end, which we're going to cover in the third tutorial. And the second tutorial, we're going to talk about the custom character creation, so how to customize these guys, particularly Mar with his detective outfit. Now, these characters, you may recognize them. They actually come from a Gary Pie content pack. If you go to our content store here, I'll show you really quickly if you want to find these characters, because they're not included in Crazy Talk Animator 3 purchase content store up here. Excuse me. So in the content store, these little mates right here. So these are all characters from our developer Gary Pie. Really cool stuff. A lot of the animation we're going to be using these characters for is we're going to be using sprite animation. And if you have any questions about G3 character animation as well, feel free to ask me those questions at the end of this webinar. All right, but that's about enough introduction. So this is our scene, the first scene in our webinar, and this is the one where we're going to be creating this office right here. Now, before we do that, I'm just going to go ahead and play this back. And I've added a little cockroach there. That's going to be our animated prop that we're going to create. Some people will recognize this stuff.
I'm trying to figure out how we're going to infiltrate this.
I'm just going to.
You seem like a close-knit bunch.
Turn down the volume right there so you can just see them bantering back and forth as I talk over top of this. Now, yeah, so we're going to be creating this scene right here, and that's what we're going to be covering in this webinar. Some customized props. You can see the deer head, this poster in the background. I forget what else is customized here. A couple other things. I'm going to show you how you can, bring in your own custom props and add them to your scene. And that little cockroach that ran across at the bottom there was customized as well. All right, now this is the second scene. The first scene is actually the intro scene right here. If I go ahead and open my project, this is the Law and Order kind of scene that you saw earlier, the introduction scene. I couldn't really think of any better audio to use for the music for the intro, so I just chose Law and Order. All right, once this loads up, let me play it back. And all these cars driving along the bottom, these are customized as well. And our title right there, we're going to learn how to create that a little bit later on. All right, cool. So this is actually a scene that is available from Gary Pie as well in the content store. And you can email me later, and I can provide you links for all this stuff if you want to get it from the content store later on. But yeah, so this scene is basically, if we zoom out here, we're going to go off camera mode here. This is camera record mode. This is the first part of the UI introduction, I guess you can call it. So we'll deselect camera UI mode and zoom out here. And you can see this is basically a scene where we have individual groups of buildings that you can move around on a city street layout, a grid, whatever you want to call it, and these little cars right here. So pretty simple stuff. All right, now let's take a quick look at the UI before we move on to anything. Now the UI, basically, I'm not going to spend too much time on this stuff here, but a lot of the stuff up here is, if you just mouse over it, it'll tell you exactly what it is. So for example, right here, this is export, undo, just mouse over it, and you can duplicate items. You can apply render styles and everything. Generally, horizontal flip and link right here and visibility are the ones that I use the most right here. Now, these ones over here are like your zooms and pans and rotates and everything like that. What I tend to do though is I tend to just hold the Alt key and click and drag my left mouse button to pan around my scene like this. Remember, keep your left hand on the Alt key, and you can click left click to move around like this. Both mouse buttons will allow you to zoom in and out like this if you have the Alt key selected, or if you have the Alt key held down rather. Okay, and the right key won't do anything. So just left and both mouse buttons. You can also, if you have an object selected like this little group of buildings, for example, you can also scroll your mouse. If I scroll my mouse up, it'll bring this closer to us. If I scroll it down, it'll bring it further away from us. Now keep in mind that when scrolling the mouse button, this is bringing it back and forth on the z-axis. And you can see these values up here, right here, the z-axis value is changing, 650, and 720, and go all the way up to like 940, and it makes it appear closer in the scene. Now you can also use this one right here. At the bottom of every selection box, there'll be this little arrow gizmo. You can click and drag that and move it back and forth just like this, and it has the same results. So this is the z-axis. This is a three-dimensional axis right here. We can put it way back below the street grid right there. We can bring it above. Generally, we want to place it like right above the ground right there. But say we bring it like way up like this. We can also go over here to 3D view. And if I take a look at 3D view, I move it over to the side here, you can see now that we've really moved everything. This entire street scene right here is way in front of all the other stuff. If we bring it back on the z-axis right here, you can see the z-axis value changing up here. And you can bring it back on your z-axis. Now this can be handy. This comes in handy for certain effects like a parallax effect. If I bring this forward, say to here for example, and I scroll back and forth, notice that it appears things that are closer to the scene, things that are closer to your camera will appear to move a bit more, and you can see that the other background down here, the other group of buildings down here doesn't move as much. Okay, so we move back and forth. If we bring it forward even more, we'll get a stronger effect. So you can tell it's closer to us when we move it back and forth, because it's moving a lot more when we scroll, when we pan our camera back and forth. All right, so that's it. That's that. Okay, this camera is this scene is pretty much already set up for us. Okay, so we don't really need to do much from this scene, but these cars that I've added to the scene, for example, these cars actually came from Google Images, and these are customized props that I just brought in. So let's take a look at these cars first. All I need to do is go to Google Images, and I just searched like cartoon cars overhead, I think. Yeah, something like that. It's cartoon cars overhead, and you get all these car images like this, and all you have to do is just really save them out as images, and import them in. Let's take this police one for example. Okay, so an overhead view of a car. Now, another thing you want to make sure you do as well before we get into this is you want to go over to here to Settings and Advanced Search, and you want to make sure you set your file type to PNG, because most PNG files, like 95% of them, will be transparent PNG, which means they have a transparent background. Now, this is not totally necessary, but it's really recommended to have PNG files. Otherwise, you'll have to remove the background manually in Photoshop. And we can talk about that a little bit later. So let's take that police cruiser, which is the PNG file here, for example. And you can tell it's a transparent background by the checkered background in the image right here. So if the image has a checkered background, that means it's a transparent PNG. And you can just right-click it, and you can save image as. And we'll just save it as into our CTA class folder right here. Okay, and there's police car top view. You can click and drag it directly from the toolbar in Google Chrome into your Crazy Talk scene, or you can also drag it from Explorer. Just drag it anywhere on your scene, and you want to import it in as a prop. Okay, so there's our police cruiser, import it in as a prop. You can see it's below the grid there, so we can bring it forward on the z-axis just like this, and then we need to resize it a little bit. So let's just kind of resize it manually. We'll just eyeball it here. And we have all these cars animated already. I'm not going to spend too much time animating these cars since it's pretty straightforward. So now we've added this police cruiser to our background, and we can animate it, moving it back and forth just like this. Now I'm going to show you how to animate the prop really quick, because it's really simple just to do this. So if you take a look at these other items, like this car here, for example, excuse me, this car, there's a green line behind it and a little origin point over here. Okay, so this dot here is like an origin point where the car came, or where the car is heading to. Okay, the destination. And this is the origin point over here. Okay, so these cars are going back and forth, and don't worry about this. Let's actually just take this and make it invisible. Let's go back to frame 1 here, and make it. Oh, it already is invisible. Okay, so we need to just ignore that then. And so the cars are moving like this, and there's the directed by Kai appearing right there. Let's actually make those both invisible here. take this visibility off. All right, and the directed by Kai, we can change that little bit of visibility off there as well. Whoops. Oh, I believe that's an image layer. Is it? I believe I imported that as an image layer. Yeah. Okay, so just select the image layer. Make it invisible. There we go. We'll talk more about image layers a little bit later. Okay, but what we want to do is animate this car first of all. So at frame 1, what we're going to do is have our police car selected, and our scene will go until, what frame is it? Does it end? Directed by Kai, and then it comes off. So about, frame, we want it to be moving until frame 500. Now this little red triangle here at the bottom here, this is basically the duration of our project. So you can extend this as much as you want, but what I like to do is I like to go over here to project settings. You can also press Control Shift and P and select the number of frames to like 500, for example, because that's all we need, okay? And then it'll take up the entire timeline, right? It'll move from there to there. All right, so what we want to do is we want to move this car, very simple prop animation, this police cruiser, move it from, just select it over here. You can also select it in the scene manager here as well. The content manager is where you find all your content. So, your accessories, your actors over here, the props and everything, you can find them all over here. And I'm not going to spend too much time explaining this at first because we're kind of going to cover it as we go through the process here. So the props you can find in here. Now, say, for example, I wanted to save this police cruiser prop for, some other project in the future. Well, what I can do, it doesn't really matter what size it is. I can bring it up to whatever size I want. Go over here to Props, go to the Custom tab, and in Prop Custom, I'm just going to go ahead and press the plus key. Make sure the cruiser is selected. Press the plus key, and we'll just name it Cruiser, whatever we want to call it, okay? It should be ready any moment. It doesn't take that long. Okay, so we'll just call it Cruiser, okay? And then we can bring in multiple copies of it if we want. If we just make sure we don't have anything selected, just bring it over here to an empty spot. And there you go. We have another cruiser, and it's imported as a prop just like that. We can also hold Control and click and drag. Let's actually just scale it down first. Say we had a cavalcade of police cars just driving along this road. Let's hold the Control key, click and drag, and it'll create a duplicate of that. In the scene manager, you can see it creates another police car top view with a 0 in parentheses. We can create a third one just like this by holding Control and clicking and dragging, and that creates a third copy. Now, if we want them to all move at the same time, I'm just going to hold Control and click on them, or you can also hold Control and click on the scene manager there as well. And at frame 500, so let's go all the way to the very end, we need them to go in front of the other car. So they should be at frame 500, they should be at about this position right here. Okay? And that'll basically just animate them all at the same time. So you can see now they're just driving along right there, and we're good to go. Alternately, what I can do is if I right-click on those and I select Remove Object Animation, that's going to remove all the animation for all those props. That's a really, really useful tool. A really useful tip is right-click, Remove Object Animation to remove all the animation for an object if you just want to start from scratch. I use that all the time. Okay, another way you can do it is you can just select the first car, and you can move that first car frame 500 over to in front of this red car up here, and then the first car will be animated by itself. Okay, and then at frame 1, what you can do is you can select these two by holding Control and clicking them, and you can use the link option right here. Okay, you can select the link, and you can link those to this lead car right here, and then wherever you move this car, those ones are going to follow. Okay, so that's another easy way to move multiple props at once. So we'll just go ahead and play back. All right, cool. So that's how you import a prop, and what we're going to do next is we're going to create our logo. Okay, so we need to just put a logo over top of all this stuff. So to create our logo, we're actually going to use Photoshop here. Like I mentioned, you can do this in like GIMP as well. GIMP is a free download. So what I'm going to do is we actually have the project loaded up here. I'll go and load the project, logo project. Okay, since I don't really want to spend much time doing this from scratch since we have other things to care about. So this may be a little bit complex. What I'll just do is I'll just make everything invisible for now. And under Marv and Kip, this folder right here, I have Marv and Kip as separate text files. So if you want to add text to your scene, all you need to do is just go over here to text and just type in, hello everyone. Okay, so that's how you can add text to your scene, and it'll create a separate layer whenever you add text. Okay, so see layer 1 right here. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that layer for now since we don't want it. But I just want to show you that we already have these text layers, Kip, and if I press the V hotkey, I can move them all separately like this. I'll press Control Z to undo it and move Kip separately. Okay, now it's important when you import these props, you want to have them on separate layers. Okay, you want to export as different images. Okay, so let's twirl up that folder there, Marvin Kip, and then private eyes. This is just the text for private eyes. Okay, and then we have a rounded rectangle that I used to layer over the private eyes, or be the backdrop for the private eyes right there. And then I have this ellipse right here, which I've placed it at the bottom layer, so you can click and drag to move your layers. If I want the rectangle above this other layer, I can just click and drag it like that, and you can take that rectangle and move it just like in Crazy Talk. You can do the same thing for your layers. Okay, so this is the basic layout of our logo. I'm not going to go into too much detail how to create this because it's more in Photoshop, and we want to spend more time in Crazy Talk. Now, what I'm going to do from here is I have a separate folder for logo. And you can see in the logo folder, I have each image saved as a transparent PNG. So I have this Marvin Kip right here. If I click and drag or double click that, I've exported a separate image for Marvin Kip. And I've exported a separate image for the background. So what I've done is I've exported each separate layer as a separate PNG image. Okay? And the way you can do that, in case you're not aware, let's just do this green ellipse here as an example, just this background. Say I only want to export this as a separate image. Just make everything else invisible. Go File, Save As, and then we'll go to our logo folder. Make sure we save it as a PNG. Okay, remember I mentioned transparent PNG is the one that you want to use, and we'll just call it like a BG test. Okay, because the original one is background, so just call it BG test and save it. And you want to select this stuff doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's not interlaced and press OK. And there you go. All right, now, if this is going too fast for some of you as well, we're going to be recording this and providing you with a link, a video link, to watch this later on as well. So if I'm going too fast, just make sure that you check out the video later on and you can review it on your own time, okay? Because we've got a lot of stuff to cover here. All right, so we have all that stuff. I'm going to go back to Crazy Talk here. We're going to start a new project. Actually, we can load up our logo project here. Under logo, excuse me, we have this logo project here. Now this one here, if I play back, or if I scrub through the timeline, you can see each separate object here is coming into the screen at different times. And this is where we're using elastic motions, okay? And this is all I've done. Okay, so let's take a look at the green background here, for example, specifically. Now this green background, if we go to the Content Manager and we go to Elastic Motions down here and we go to Entrance, this green background uses an entrance elastic motion, okay? And I think it's Move Bounce, this one right here. If we press F3 and go into the timeline and we have our BG selected, I always normally have this object here selected as well, Object Related Track, this option rather, not object. I always have this selected. And basically what that does is if I select different items, like this yellow background, it'll show that in the timeline. If I select the green background, it'll show that in the timeline. So this is a really useful tip. Have object-related tracks selected because whenever you select something in your scene, it'll automatically bring up the timeline tracks for that object. I always use that. This is just, if you're clicking on something, you probably want to edit it. So that's just kind of the logic I use. Anyways, so under the motion track right here, you can see we have this elastic motion clip. And it starts from frame 0. So grow, elastic motion, end in a bounce, okay? So I think move bounce is the one we used. Yes, I believe it's that one. Did it a while ago. So move bounce, let's see if it's the same one. Yep, okay, so we select move bounce, and let's just delete the original clip there. Delete this clip, delete everything. So okay, let's start from scratch. So it's just sitting there in the middle of our screen. We want to use an elastic motion entrance clip. So let's just select move bounce. Okay, so the green one comes in like that. We can go ahead and right click, remove object animation, and we can try a different one. Try something like move damp. In that case, it won't bounce around as much. It'll kind of just move in a dampening way, like just like this. Okay, so just like that. Now you can also use something like fade in, for example. We can also delete the clip itself and use something like fade in. It'll just fade in like that. Okay, these are just different elastic motions that I'm showing you here, and something like maybe enter corner bounce. It'll come in like that, which is kind of cool. I think it kind of fades in from the top right there and bounces in just like this, and the opacity gradually increases. All right, now on top of that, let's go ahead and try this move decelerate one. So this one's pretty, comes in nice and smoothly just like that. Now if you want to edit the way that it comes in, you can just right click on your elastic motion clip and go to the elastic motion editor. Now this is where we can change a whole bunch of stuff. Let's zoom out here a little bit. And you can see there's a blue square here, outline. This is the origin point for our object, okay? So we can change the origin point to whatever we want. We want to make sure it's an entrance, okay? So because it's coming into our scene, we're using entrance, okay? Just like this, entrance. Just like that, entrance. And you can rotate and everything like that. There's a separate tutorial on this that I can really recommend to you guys. We're not going to go into too much detail right here, but what you can do is you can change the motion curve. This is what I want to do. So right now it's currently at decelerate. You can see move decelerate. If I change this to like stutter start or like end in a bounce, for example, that's the same one that we had before. So to end in a bounce like that. There's this one here, stutter start and stutter end. So you can use all these different motion curves to have different effects for your entrances. All right, and I think that I shouldn't have removed all the animation from that before. Let's just select our, okay, so then we no longer have, so I'm just going to reload this project really quickly here, because I wasn't supposed to remove all the animation there. All right, so same thing. All right, so we pretty much have this exact same thing here. Now, if I press F3 and go into the timeline again, and I have this background selected, let's go to the motion track here, and you can see now we actually have this whirl minimize, okay, this whirl minimize elastic motion, and this is where everything disappears, just like that. It goes off into the distance. So this is the exit clip that we use. So this is elastic motion and exit right here. So this one, I believe we used roll minimize maybe, whirl minimize, okay, so it actually says it on the clip right there. You can use whirl minimize right here. So this is the exact same one. Now the reason everything else minimizes along with this background is because everything else is actually linked to this elastic motion. So if I select this Marvin clip right here, or Marvin Kip text right here, and I go to link, you can see from this point on, it's actually linked to background. And you can see if I mouse over that, you can see it's linked to BG right there. If I select private eyes, text right there, and I go to the link, you can see the same thing. It's also linked to this background. So I've only applied the exit motion to this one background item right here. This is the only one that has an exit motion, but everything else is linked to it. So everything else is going to follow along. And again, like I showed you how to link before, if I select private eyes and I select unlink right here, and I select the background, it'll delink from the background. So private eyes right here, now you can see there's no longer a link, just a single keyframe. And then if I go like this, only private eyes will remain, okay, because it's not linked to the actual background. If I want to restore that, then I can just go over here and link one more time. and select that background. Okay, and it's linked, and there's a line for the duration of how it's linked. If we go like this, and then stay here, we unlinked it again, just for fun, unlink it again, it'll stop right there, okay? So from here to there, and then it'll stop right there. So there's some quick, prop animation for your logo. Now, if you have time later, I can kind of do that from scratch, but I just kind of wanted to show you. I'm going to press Control-Z there, undo that. Excuse me. I just wanted to show you how you can do that. So this is the first part of our intro. We've pretty much done the logo here. Again, I didn't create from scratch, but I just kind of wanted to show you, kind of reverse engineer how I did this, just using simple import and export, or rather entrance and exit elastic motions for the various layers of my Photoshop project there. Okay, so now the next step is we want to get this over top of our, overhead city background scene. So we need to export it. Now, before you export, you want to make sure you go to the very end of your project, which is like, frame 308 in this case. Go to project settings and only have the duration of the animation that you need set there. So if I set it to like 1800, for example, it's going to render 1800 frames. And even though I don't need 1800 frames, I only need 308 frames. Okay, so keep this at 308, press OK. And if we want to render this kind of animation with a transparent background, the easiest way to do it is actually to go to Render. You can also go to Export over here as well. Go to Export, it'll open up your render settings, video and image, excuse me. And we have Format Pop Video. So Pop Video, in case you're not aware, is our transparent video format that we use within iClone and Crazy Talk. So if you export this as a pop video, you can also use it in iClone as well. It's exported as a pop video. So we're going to change this to pop video. You can also use WMV, MP4, all this stuff. Pop video is the one I'm going to use. You can also do a transparent image over here, but go to Image, and you go to PNG, transparent PNG sequence. That'll export like 308 PNG images that you can use in Adobe Premiere or something like that. But I'm just going to use video, pop video, and export it. And I think I exported it already to logo. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so we go to logo. Let's just call it test logo. Okay, and save that out. And then it's going to export like 309 images. Now, during that time, we can load up our original project. But in Photoshop, what I'm going to do, because the next step we're going to take is we're going to actually create an animated prop. So let's we'll just wait for this. Actually, it's not going to take too long. So you can see that video will render in about 20 seconds, 30 seconds. All right, so now we have that all as a transparent pop video file. So let's go over to our intro. Open project. I'm going to open the logo project, was it? No, intro one right here. And let's just delete the original entrance logo that we had. I'll show you how to reverse engineer it. As you can tell, we're kind of like restricted for time, which is why I'm reverse engineering everything here. Okay, so we have the same intro sequence right here, and we're just kind of loading it up there. Come on, guys. There we go. Okay, so Scene Manager, we have our intro text, which we've imported as a prop. Okay, so the intro text is the item that comes in like this. Well, you have to play it back, I guess. So this is our intro text item. If we select it off, there you go. We see this is selected, and we're moving it around like that. So that's the intro text. Let's go ahead and delete this one. Delete it, and we're going to add in our own intro text. Okay, so the one that we just rendered. So we can go into Explorer here, and we have test logo.pop video right here, pop video file. Let's just go ahead and import this in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here because I want to import it into a blank spot. Over here, test video, and import it in just like this, and import it in as a prop. Okay, and you won't see anything at first, but if we play back, you can see, boom, it'll appear right over here. Now we want this to be right in the middle, so let's go to type in 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the y-axis, okay, just so it's kind of centered. And we normally want to do that at frame 1, so let's go back to frame 1 here. Let's right-click, remove object animation, okay, and at frame 1, 0, 0, okay, and let's go back to the center, center everything right here. And so this crosshairs here is the center of our project. If I press the up arrow on my keyboard, I can move it and kind of place it relatively where I think is centered. So I'm using the up arrow on my keyboard. I normally do this for more precise placements. Okay, so now it's placed right in the middle there. If we press F3 and go into our timeline, you can see test logo appears. We go to the motion track, nothing right there. It's just like a regular prop, okay? It'll just appear whenever we want it to appear. So if we play back, okay, it's appearing below everything, which we don't want, okay? So we need to make sure we bring it forward on the z-axis, maybe to about here, and that should be good. All right, and if we want it to appear a little bit later, what we can do is change the visibility. So let's go to visibility right here, visible. And at frame 1, we're going to make it invisible. Okay, so we'll select visible, invisible. You can see the eye closes right there. And see, we didn't want it to come in until about frame 30. And at frame 30, we can make it visible, just like that. And you can see a keyframe will appear. And here we go. Then it won't come in until frame 30. Okay, now another thing to keep in mind, I just recognize this, is some of you may be wondering, like, oh hey, there's some stuff outside on the edges of our scene that, like for example, if I press F3, there's this car over here, and we see all this white extra real estate that we don't really want in our final render. Well, the important thing to note here is that the only thing that's going to be rendered is the stuff in this red rectangle here, okay? Everything in this red rectangle is the only stuff that's going to be rendered. All right, so when you do your final render, just make sure you're aware of that. It's a very thin red rectangle, maybe a little difficult for some of you to see, but that's the stuff that's going to be rendered. Okay, if you deselect your camera record mode, it turns to blue. If you select camera record mode, this is what's going to be recorded, is everything within this red rectangle. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes now to create our scene 1, just the background for our scene 1. We're not going to get into the characters here, but we're going to actually just develop our scene from scratch. So we go to open project here. We don't need to save this. I already have it saved. Let's go to scene 1 right here. Now we will be providing you, I will be providing you with this scene 1 and scene 2 at, or the intro rather, as part of attending this webinar. Now keep in mind that some of this stuff is purchased from the content store. So if you do not own this stuff, say for example all this office stuff, I think it's like G2 Power Tools pack. If you don't own it, when you load this project into your scene, into your Crazy Talk animator, you're going to see some watermarks. And the reason for that is because you didn't purchase the content. So when you render it, you're not going to be able to render it without the watermarks. All right, it's just kind of like a DRM protection thing. So some of this stuff is just stuff I pulled from the internet, and some of the stuff is part of content packs that are part of Crazy Talk Animator. Okay, so this scene right here, we're going to just recreate certain parts of this scene. Now the things we're going to recreate are this brick background right here. This is the one thing I want to recreate, definitely. I'm going to go out of camera record mode because we're not rendering right now. And I'm going to select the brick background right here and just delete it. And delete this one over here. And you can see beneath that is just a regular wall. Now the project that I used to start off this office right here, if you go to Content Manager and under Scene, under Scenes right here, this is the office right here. Okay, so now this office, if it says RS in the top left, that means you can use a render style on the office, okay? So if I go over here, if I select my background, let's go to Scene actually, select everything in my scene, and go over here to render style. What's going to happen is I can choose something like neon, for example, and the stuff that I've selected, like the background right there, we can change it to grayscale, line art, neon. There's a number of different render styles you can use: cartoon art, retro, pop art, okay, and various things will look various ways. Let's just go ahead and use a neon one, for example. Use a grayscale one. Okay, so now you're probably wondering how I got that brick wall to kind of scale to the perspective of this wall right here, because you can see it's kind of stretching out a little bit as it gets closer to the camera. Excuse me. So first of all, let's type in, I think I typed in cartoon brick wall, okay, in Google Images right here. And you can see there's a number of different brick walls that you can select. I'm not sure which one I selected. Again, make sure your PNG files. Actually, it doesn't really matter in this case if PNG or not. It could be any file type. And I think I found my brick wall here somewhere. Maybe this one right here is kind of nice. Oh, that one has some watermarks on it. We'll just choose any old brick wall. This one right here is, nice and plain. Maybe a little bit. I'm being too picky with the brick walls here. Let's try. I kind of like this one here. Oh, that one has watermark as well. All the good ones have watermarks. Because I can't see the one that I originally used here. I'm pretty sure I typed in Toon Brick Wall, but let's go ahead for this one here. All right, good enough. We're just going to go ahead and use this one. So right-click, save image as, and we'll just save it as brick wall clip art, whatever it is. All right, and we'll click and drag this into our Crazy Talk scene. Make sure you click and drag it to a blank spot. Okay, and put it in as a prop. And okay, so we're going to have some trouble here because the brick wall is obviously not scaled properly. So let's scale it up. And what I want to do is kind of match it, at least one side, to the length of this wall here. So let's just click and make it a little bit smaller right here. Place it right there. And we can move it back on the z-axis just like this. Okay, just like that. And okay, so maybe a little bit, stretch it a little bit more. Okay, good enough. So as long as this edge here is aligned, we should be good. I can use my left arrow key to kind of zoom it in right there. Okay, good. So you're probably wondering, okay, how do I, stretch this brick wall out to the rest of the, to cover the rest of the wall? Well, the way you can do that is pretty easy. Just go ahead and use your prop key editor right here. And with the prop key editor panel open, go to deform. And deform will allow you to deform this image right here, the prop image. Make sure you have smooth deform object selected, okay? Now I'll create a smoother stretching for you, smoother mesh manipulation. And just select the points. You can hold Control and select the points that you want to move out and stretch them like this. Or just select one point. There we go. And stretch that to about here. And then this point, stretch it to over here. Something like that. And it might take a minute or two to get your proportions correct. But once you do, you will have a nice brick wall that has covered your background. So you no longer have to fret if the perspective in your project is a little bit different. You just stretch it out like that, and boom, we have a nice looking brick wall. All right, and we're good to go, just like that. And when you're satisfied with your positioning, everything looks not too stretched out, you can press Enter, or just close your prop key editor rather. Is it closing? Okay, there we go. Then we have this nice brick wall. And here's another trick. If we want to extend it to the rest of the section right here, well, let's just go ahead and basically hold Control and click and drag it just a little bit like that, and then flip it using this flip tool right here, horizontal flip. And then we can move it from here to here, and those edges should align properly. And if they don't, we can always stretch them. Okay, so again, use the same thing. Prop key editor, stretch this one over here, just to cover the little section that's not connecting properly. Oops. There we go. Just like that. And then do the same thing for the rest of the area right here. Stretch it out and these ones have to be, oops, right here as well. Now keep in mind when you flip it, it actually inverts the movement of the mesh. So it can be a little bit tricky when you use the flip tool. It'll actually invert your mesh. So right now, if I move my mouse upwards, the mesh is actually stretching downwards, and that can be troublesome for some people. I'm not sure if we're going to fix that later on, but it's just a little annoyance there. Okay, so there's our completed brick wall. That's probably one of the most important things you'll learn about in this first hour of the webinar is kind of how to stretch things out like that using the prop key deformation. We created a nice new looking brick wall right there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to create this poster really quick, and then we'll get to our Q&A session. So if you have any questions, we're going to get to that in like 5 minutes here. I just added all these wine bottles and everything like that onto the table. Everything here is pretty much just copied and linked the procedures I showed you before. This poster, I think I just typed in like cartoon hot lady or something like that. Probably not too safe for work in certain cases. Depends on what you type in. I think it was cartoon hot lady or something like that. But I'm not going to type it in right now. I'm not sure what will come up. So it really depends. But I have the original image saved. Okay, under CTA class we have this. This image right here. This is the original image that I had. Now the way that I made it look a little bit more aged is I took it into Photoshop. So I'll just go ahead and take this one into Photoshop really quickly. Oh, for goodness sakes. Okay, so let's go to click and drag it into Photoshop. Should be good. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to go to image and excuse me, canvas size. I'm going to make the canvas about 400 by 400 pixels. Okay, so we have a little bit of room to kind of stretch it out. And or we can actually just create an image. This is probably a better way to do it. 400 by 400 pixels. Okay, let's close that original one there. And then what I can do is I can click in that image in here, and it'll import it as a separate layer, or as a transformable layer right here. And then we can click and drag certain areas like that, and move it to whatever position we want. Let's go ahead and press enter. And if I want to kind of stretch it out, we can do this in Crazy Talk like I just showed you. You can also do it in Photoshop by going to image, layer. Edit. Where is it again? Image adjustments. There we go. And layer transform. Oh goodness, I always forget where this stuff is here. Edit. Edit transform. Okay, here we go. Edit transform, and you can rotate, perspective, distort. I just use warp. Okay, and warp is very similar to the thing that I just showed you in Crazy Talk. So you can kind of warp it out like a poster. Like no poster is ever going to be perfectly square, so you can just kind of move this stuff out like that. All right, and kind of just warp it to whatever position you want and press enter. So I've kind of warped it like that. And then what I can do is go into my production resources folder. I have a number of blend maps. You can find these blend maps in the iClone 6 library as well. And I'll just click and drag this blend map in like that, and position it right over top of our layer just like that, and press enter. And we probably should have. You can change the opacity of this. Okay, you can right-click this, and you can select blending options. And blending, you can blending mode darken. You can choose dissolve or multiply. Which one did I use? Color burn, something like that. You can change the blend mode to whatever you want. Okay, something like that. Generally, I probably should have. Also take the opacity down as well if we want. There you go. That looks a little bit better. Makes it look a bit more aged. Just change the opacity or the blend levels or something like that, and you get a result like this. Now I do need to transform this as well. So edit, transform, warp. I probably should have done this, merge the layers first of all before I did this, but you get the point here. I'm going to conform it to this layer right here. And that should be good. Almost done here, guys. There we go. I'll make it look a bit more aged anyways. Press enter. And then if I want to get like, edges that are torn out of this, everything like that, what I can just do, let's just select both of these and merge layers since we don't need to separate them anymore. And I can just go ahead and select, let's just use polygon lasso tool, select, and a new layer. I'm going to move this on top. And then you can just select, certain parts that you want to cut out, like, for example, here. I want to have that part torn out. Let's go ahead and press delete and select something over here. And delete that. So then we have kind of like tears that are, torn out of the edge of our poster. And Control D to deselect. All right, so now we have this like torn, worn poster. You go to File, Save As, and again, save as a PNG. I'm going to save it to my desktop. We'll call it, oh, it's already there. Tests. We'll just replace it. Okay, and then we can go to find Test on the desktop here. Click and drag it into our scene, into an empty spot over here. Import it as a prop. And there you go. Is our poster, pretty similar to the one that we had before. I think I used darken for this, for the blend mode on this one over here. Pretty similar diffuse map, or blend map though. Okay, so there's, your poster that I've just, created some aging on and everything like that. This dude here is just taken from some image I found for cartoon deer head on Google Images. All right, so that's about it, for the creation of your scene. I just hope you guys learned a couple of useful tips there for kind of assembling your scene, creating your own logo and introduction. The most important thing is, how to import in, because probably a lot of you just want to use like free stuff from Google, which is fine. I love using all the free stuff that I got from Google, like these posters and everything like that. Obviously, if you're using it for commercialization or commercial purposes, you'll want to double check where the images come from, but if you're just using it for personal fun on YouTube or something like that, you don't really have to worry about just copying images or stuff from YouTube or from Google Images rather, and importing them in as props, and then customizing them and manipulating them in your own ways. But yeah, that was creating your background, creating your scene, creating custom props. We do have one little thing that we kind of missed out on here is how to create the little cockroach. And this right here, this little cockroach going across the bottom right there. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. We'll probably cover this in like 2 minutes here. Now, what I did is in Photoshop, I just created a new project. And let's just do this really quickly. 800. Just create an image that's 800 by 800. All I did for this little cockroach here is I created a couple of ellipses, just like ellipse, and created like a bug body like this, created a bug head like this, and then I created a couple legs, just using, I believe I used rectangles for the legs, and something like that. And Control T to transform the position of these. And then, whoops, enter. And I just, copied a bunch of these. Oops. Select that layer and Control C, Control V. Oops. Edit. Huh. Supposed to copy that shape Anyways, let me just load the project. I have the Photoshop project saved in CTA class here. So that will be found under bug. And so all I did is I created 2 images of a bug, basically. Okay, so right here, I created those legs. I kind of tapered them off a little bit. And I just have 2 separate images of the bug. The first one is like this. All right, saved like this. And the second one is in a different position where the legs are in a different position. So they're both just 2 PNG files. And you can find those in my CTA class folder here under bug. You can see step 1 is like this, and step 2 is like this. So they're just 2 PNG images with the legs in different positions. Okay, this is kind of like how ants walk, just like this. All right, now when I imported that in, I just imported in step 1 right here. So this is a PNG image. I'm just going to import this into Crazy Talk really quickly. Let's just actually start a new project here just to make things a bit cleaner. Import this in as a prop. All right, so we have this bug right here. And if we go over here to Sprite Editor, we have an empty sprite slot right here. You can select that empty sprite slot, and we should be able to import in a new image, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, we need to go into Composer mode rather, and Sprite Editor. And here you can import in a new sprite. So we'll select the empty one, import in a new sprite, and we'll use step 02. So now we have 2 separate sprites like this. Very, very simple. Okay, just very, very simple animation. And the way you're going to animate that in the stage mode here, back in stage mode, is just by switching the sprites back and forth. All right, and to do that, you can go to like frame, whoops, excuse me, it's frame like 5, and then go into the sprite editor and enter step 2. And let's press F3 and go into the timeline here. And you can see when we start editing the sprites, this step 1S track will appear, and that's the sprite editing track. So right here we have sprite 2, and then we'll go to step 1, frame 15, step 2, frame 20, step 1, 25, step 2, 30, step 1. And then if we scroll back, we can see we have this, kind of crawling motion right there. So all we're doing is swapping between 2 separate sprites. Really simple, really easy. This is a very basic and the most basic of examples here. Now, unfortunately, you can't copy and paste all these sprite keyframes. So what you can do instead is you can go to your collect clip track and click from frame 30, click and drag all the way to frame 0, and right-click and select Add to Action Menu. And we'll just call this Crawl. Okay? Because every prop you can add an action menu to your prop. And then what I'm going to do is right-click this and select Remove Object Animation. So there's no animation right here at all. No animation on this bug, this cockroach. Let's right-click it, and we can now go to the Action menu and select Crawl. And that'll create a clip in the motion track right here. Okay, so this is a crawl clip right here. And if we want it to go faster, then we can go ahead and select this clip, choose our speed, and make it faster like this. Oops, click on the edge there. And then we can loop it, just like this, and we can go like this. So then we have this bug crawling across the ground. If you want to change the perspective of this bug, you can kind of just, stretch it down like this, and there you go. It'll kind of look like it's running a bit more flat. You may want to, consider deforming these legs to make them a little bit shorter, since it seems a little bit strange. But anyways, that's kind of how you create the animated bug. And just like the cars we showed earlier, if you want them to go across the screen, just like this, go to frame like 60, for example, and go to the other end. And then we have a creepy little bug crawling across our screen, just like this. All right, and that's the last thing I really wanted to show you there, guys. Sorry I went a little bit over time, but we have about 10 minutes here for Q&A. So I'm going to open up the questions section here. Now, we won't be able to get to all the questions here, unfortunately, but I do have an email. That's kai@reillusion.com. That's kai@reillusion.com. And I'll be able to take any of your questions there later. In addition to that, we'll also have, this second second and third classes to cover some of this stuff that we covered here. If you have any lingering questions, excuse me, and I'll also explore character creation and animation as well. All right, so questions. Let's go get to it. First question, will this be recorded to watch again? Anne asks. Yeah, we are actually recording this right now. So if I went through a lot of stuff really quickly, like I know I did, you can rewatch it and also email me as well if anything is not clear. Eve asks, Class 2 is pay, not free, right? Yes, unfortunately, Eve, Class 2 and Class 3 will be paid webinars. So you'll have to pay to attend those. So keep that in mind, everyone. We're also going to be sending out a survey rather to you guys to get your feedback on the webinar. What you liked, what you think can be improved, or what kind of stuff you want to learn in the future. And if you fill out that survey for us, we'll be providing you with a $10 gift certificate for the content store. So you can use that $10 towards any purchase on the content store, such as the Gary Pie stuff that I just showed you, or whatever you want. Okay, so we have a question from Dan talking about when will you be able to save G3 bodies in Crazy Talk Animator? Well, you can save G3 bodies right now. I think what Dan might be talking about is PSD import. Now, in the next webinar, we're going to be talking all about character customization and creation and how to create your own characters from scratch. We have some tutorials on this already, but I will be getting into more detail on that part of the webinar as well. We're going to be creating a custom character from scratch from a single image, fully functional and everything like that. But the PSD functionality is set to be probably in the next patch, I think, for Crazy Talk. So I think that's coming out in April or May. Can't really say for sure. I haven't been updated on the latest schedule for that. So, but we will be having an option where you can import in a PSD, and it'll automatically, excuse me, apply a brand new character to your scene. Okay, so somebody mentioned that the screen is lagging behind the audio. I'm unfortunately sorry about that, guys. We have a full webinar here. We may be experiencing some lag, but hopefully the recording is a lot clearer for you. Okay, and Matthew asks, please repeat how you imported the PNG. Well, just basically click and drag from the Explorer. You can go over here to CTA class. I'll just import in any old PNG, like this hat, for example. This hat is going to be part of our second part of our tutorial. So we right-click, or just click and drag that hat. You can import it in as a prop, image layer, background, or G3 Freebone actor. Okay, I'll import it as a prop. Boom, there we have a prop. And we can save that by going over to Content Manager, Props, and Custom. And just pressing this plus button here, and we can save it as hat. Okay, there we go. Hat 2, because I already have hat saved here. All right, so that's really simple. So Dan asks, what do I export to if I don't have iClone? You can export to, I believe, QuickTime format. Can you export to QuickTime format? I do believe we have, nope, unfortunately just WMV, AVI, MP4, and WAV. Excuse me. But I believe if you have Pop Video, which is a separate program, that'll export to QuickTime format. But normally I export to MP4, unless I need some sort of transparent stuff going on. So unfortunately, we don't have the QuickTime export at this moment. Sorry about that, Dan. So Josie asks, is Pop Video the same as a PNG image sequence? Does it import into After Effects? Unfortunately, Pop Video does not import into After Effects itself, the format. But Pop Video is actually a separate program. It's like a chroma key program. You can remove green screen backgrounds and everything like that. It's our own proprietary software. You can import in your video into that, and then you can export it into, or you can actually just import your Pop Video into Crazy Talk, and then export it as an MP4. But I don't think that'll be a transparent background. No, so you'd have to just export it into Pop Video, and then export it from Pop Video, which is a separate program. You can probably find that on our website somewhere. I don't think it's too expensive. I think it's pretty cheap. 3D animation. Where's pop video here? Oh, there you go. Whoops. Sorry, the questions panel was in my way there. Pop video somewhere here. There we go. Photo and filter, pop video. This program right here. So create transparent videos. You can test it out right here. You can try it and see how it works. We don't really have time to get into too much detail on pop video though, but that's where you can find it anyways. Jonathan asks, is it possible to create custom render styles and save them as a template? Yes, you can save your own render styles as templates. We don't have time to get into that right now, but you can email me later and we can talk more about how to create your custom render styles. It's not easy to do. It's a bit complicated. I don't normally do it. I normally just import in images and modify them in Photoshop. But you can definitely create your own custom render styles as well. So Dan asks, is there an easier way to convert a front character to a side character rather than using the side dummy character? Or will we have to wait for CTA 4? CTA or G2 characters, rather, they have multiple angles. G3 characters do not. So your G2 characters right here, like Saul, for example, if you bring him in and you use your bracket keys, you can move him. You can see all the different angles just like this. So this is one really good thing about CTA2 characters, that they have multiple angles, but they are super annoying to create because you have to import in all these angles of your character. But once you have them all created, then you have a fully three-dimensional character. The only thing is that it's challenging for a lot of people because you have to create the character in Flash, all the different angles, and then import it in to Crazy Talk. It's not an easy task, but excuse me, we have a lot of people who have done it. However, for G3 characters, we only have the front-facing and the side-facing. However, the G3 characters have bone structure, whereas G2 characters do not have bone structure or morphable, stretchable limbs and everything like that. There are ways to stretch their limbs, but it's a lot more complicated than G3 characters. So with G3 characters, we really tried to kind of simplify things and use more of an industry standard. We still do have the G2 format, but we have G3 for more simplified animation. Okay, so Anne asks, can you save a video as a pop video in the Apple version? Yes, I believe you can. I believe there's pop video for Mac as well, so you can save it as a pop video in the Apple version. Julia asks, what is the premium seat for? I'm not sure what you mean premium seat, so maybe you can elaborate a little bit what you mean on the premium seat there, Julia. William says Control J duplicates layer. Okay, that was for Photoshop. Sometimes I'm really dumb in Photoshop. I just totally forget things. So sorry for that, guys. I don't use it all the time. Can you lock a prop in place, says Carlton. Good question, Carlton. Now, if you want to remove, let's just delete this guy here. Excuse me. Let's actually open up our scene. I'm going to show this really quickly because locking props and making other props visible is an important part of scene creation as well. So once in this project here, because sometimes you'll want to select certain things, but other things are in the way, and locking props and changing the visibility is a good way to select things to avoid selecting things that you don't want. So this bottle, for example, you go to Scene Manager here. There's a lock option right here. So, excuse me, let's say, for example, I wanted to move the desk, but I didn't want to move any of the wines. Well, I can just lock all these wines right here, and if I, select everything, just click and drag from the top right and select everything over here, you can see it will not select the glasses of wine, okay? I can, move it all, and the wine will still move because the wine is actually, in this case, attached to the desk. Maybe it's a bad example here. Let's find something that's not attached to something. So this thing right here, for example, the cabinet. I don't think this cabinet is attached to anything or linked to anything. So if we lock that and we click and drag over here, there we go. Everything's going to move except for the cabinet, okay? Because the cabinet is not selectable. So that's a really good tip. Thanks for asking that question. The locking option is available in the scene manager here. If you don't want something to move but you want everything else to move around it, that locking option is definitely something that you'll want to learn about. So thanks to Carlton for giving me a chance to teach that for you guys. Don asks, he's paid for the second and third classes, but he may miss one of the classes. Can I get the recordings? Yeah, definitely. We'll provide the recordings for all of the attendees for each individual class. All right, and another question from Carlton, limitations of standard version versus pro version. So if you're wondering whether or not to get standard or pro version, go to our site for Crazy Talk Animator, and there is a version edition comparison under overview. There's edition comparison right here, and this will show you the stuff that is included in all the different versions right here. So the main features right here, they're listed up here, and there's also a graph for your convenience. So standard, you don't have anything for the creating free-bone characters from images. A lot of this stuff is not available in the free version. Pretty much everything that we did in this tutorial or in this webinar here today is available in the standard version, I believe, except for some of the more detailed timeline editing. So you can still import in your own images and everything like that as props, which is fine. Okay, so just go here for the edition comparison and discover what features you need and what features you don't need. Okay, everything will be uploaded to YouTube, and we'll send private links to you guys for the second and third videos. We got a few questions about that. And Mario asks, are you going to show how to create G2 plus 3D characters? Unfortunately, in the second webinar, we're not going to create the G2 three-dimensional characters just because it takes forever. Well, it takes a long time. It doesn't take forever, but definitely not enough time to get into that. We have separate tutorials that I can recommend for you guys, though, for creating G2 characters. Okay, Shannon asks, how can we use the Neo speech voices in one pack in Crazy Talk that we could use in CTA 2? Geez, I'm not sure. The Neo speech voices, I'm not sure that comes with Crazy Talk embedded. That might be some additional stuff you purchased. I'm not sure what Neo speech voices are. So maybe you can email me more about that later, and I can help you out with that. Okay, so Tom asks, will you guys be adding additional audio controls? We'll talk a lot about audio controls in the third tutorial. We didn't get to audio in this one, actually. I forgot to talk about the background, how you can add the background audio. So sorry about that for you guys who wanted to learn about the background. It's really simple, actually. You just go into the timeline, press F3, and go into your timeline. Just close all these unnecessary tracks down here. Go over here to Project, and here's your music track right here. Music track, sound effects 1, sound effects 2. To add something into your music track, all you got to do is just double click it, and we can add like this background traffic, which is the audio I had for this one.
What you doing there, kid? Writing a letter to your boyfriend?
Okay, so that's the background traffic. And if we want to, add in a sound effect, so we can just double click in the sound effects track, just to enter like, sad trombone, for example.
Writing a letter to your boyfriend?
Actually.
Okay, so just really quickly, sorry guys, I didn't get to that, but background traffic, music, and you can add up to 2 sound effects simultaneously. Right, so that should be all you need. If you need more, you can always do it later in Adobe Premiere when you're assembling your project. Okay, Douglas asks a good question that I should have covered. Okay, another one. If you save that prop, the custom prop, will it keep the animation you created? And the answer is yes. So the cockroach that or the bug, whatever you want to call it, that I added previously, that I just created it and saved, if I had saved that as a custom prop, which I actually have in a previous practice run here, under props, custom, right here, you can see I have cockroach. And it has a little Annie on the top left, which means I have an animation saved in the action menu, okay? So this is the same thing that I just created before, except I didn't save it before. So if I right-click, action menu, we have crawl, okay? And we still have the animation saved. So that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that question. When you save an animation to your action menu, and then you save that prop, it's also going to save the animation. So you can see F3 in the timeline, motion right here. You can see the crawl clip that I created earlier. And we can manipulate that by looping it or stretching it or whatever we want. Okay, so really good question. Thanks for covering that. So that was Douglas. Yeah, thanks for that, Douglas. All right, so, all right, cool. So that's some thank yous from people. Thank you so much for attending, and hopefully you learned a lot. You know, I went through pretty fast through a lot of stuff because we had a lot of stuff to cover, but Dan says pop video is only for Windows. I'm pretty sure pop video is for Mac as well. It's gonna be silly if I'm wrong about this. If you buy it, I'm not sure. Is it for Mac platform? Ooh, only for Windows. It looks like it's only for Windows. So sorry about that, guys. I guess pop video currently is only for Windows, unfortunately. But you can just use like a boot camp on your Mac to get it to work. So yeah, sorry about that. But I think you can still export it from the Mac version of Crazy Talk and import it into Crazy Talk. Just there's no pop video program itself for Mac. Excuse me. So you can't export from pop video if you have a Mac, unless you use Boot Camp or something like that. So thanks for that, Dan. I didn't realize there wasn't a Mac version of pop video. Mashoud asks, can I do Lego animation with a freebone character? Yep, we're going to talk about doing animation with freebone characters in the second webinar here, tomorrow's class. And Ridzi asks, where can I download the webinar project files? We'll be sending those out to you guys. Okay, so we'll be sending out the project files, the first two that I use in this free webinar here, the intro and the office scene. Keep in mind as well that you're going to see you're going to see some watermarks if you don't have all that content purchased. Yeah, so Mario mentions there's no pop video on Mac. Sorry about that, guys. We got a few more questions here. We're running pretty over time. I'm going to get to as many questions as I can here, but we're going to kind of cut it off in a few minutes here. Okay, Camilla asks a good question. How long does it take on average for a computer-savvy person to learn Reillusion from scratch to be able to use it relatively well for smaller animation film snippets that are good enough for broadcast or kids, for broadcast for kids? Well, to be honest, Crazy Talk has probably one of the easiest learning curves out there for any 2D software. The learning curve is quite easy. We try and make it as user-friendly as possible. A lot of people start using, they start their foray into animation with Crazy Talk or even iClone. iClone, there's a lot more options. It's a bit more advanced, but Crazy Talk right now is only at version 3. So there's really not too much that's so super complicated in there. I'd say the most complicated thing is creating G2 characters. But yeah, it's a fairly easy learning curve. I would say, within a couple of months, you can be pretty good at it if you're dedicated. It's not like learning Max or Maya or something, which is going to take you a couple of years to get used to. Crazy Talk is relatively simple. I think my grandma uses Crazy Talk 8, and she's like 85 or something like that. So, I mean, if she can learn it, I'm pretty sure a lot of people can learn it as well. Okay. Just going to try and get to the most relevant questions here. Yeah, Judy mentions if we're putting the pieces together in Premiere, wouldn't it be easier to just sync up the music in Premiere, or is that user preference? Yeah, I mean, definitely I would rather, well, not rather, but it's easy to do it in Premiere. But, Premiere is kind of expensive for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have it, and you can do that in any post-production software, but we offer the option for people who don't have Premiere in Crazy Talk. So it's basically just user preference to do it in Crazy Talk or in Premiere. So Shannon asked my email address again. It's Kai, K-A-I, at reallusion.com. Okay, so feel free to email me, guys, and I'll try to elaborate or expand on any of the stuff that I've explained in this first webinar here. Okay, so we have a lot of questions about character creation, so maybe a lot of you would be interested in the second webinar here tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to end it off here, guys. So we're about 25 minutes over, a little bit longer than I expected. You know, I didn't get to everything that I wanted to here, but you know, hopefully learned a lot, and it's kind of just more like organically my process on creating a scene. The office scene, like I showed you, I could have spent a bit more time on that, but it's fairly basic, just assembling things together in a 3D environment. I showed you the 3D view and arranging things on the z-axis back and forth. We talk a little bit more about that in the third webinar, which is more about animation, because we're going to be animating stuff behind certain objects and in front of certain objects. If you recall the Benny Hill scene, there are people running around behind things and in front of things. So that's going to be all covered in the third webinar. But yeah, the next webinar tomorrow, we're going to be talking about character creation, customization, and I can expand on a lot of the stuff that I covered in this webinar as well. And again, if you don't want to attend the second or third webinar, just email me at kai@reallusion.com, and I can hopefully help you out with whatever you need. All right, so thank you so much for everyone who's attended today. Hope you have a beautiful March 6th, rest of the day or evening, wherever you are in the world. And again, we'll be sending out this recording. Don't forget to fill out the survey we're going to send out. You get a $10 gift certificate from the content store for filling out the survey. We'll be sending off the project files for you guys. Excuse me. Oh, man. And everything else that you need, and email me for anything else. So thanks so much, everyone. And I will sign off here, and I'll see you later.